2 weeks Morocco in midsummer ahead of me. Many kilometers through heat and burning sun. But if you think that adventures are dangerous, you should better try it with routine, because that is deadly for sure. Not speaking the language and the culture seems from an ancient time. Plenty of untouched nature and such a deep silence that hardly exists anymore in Europe. It will be an inner journey too. I don't want to see myself and humanity as something unnatural anymore, because we are still part of this nature, even if we might be a natural disaster. We live in times of an incredible natural disaster. All of our livelihoods are being systematically destroyed, while our population continues to explode. Diseases, economic collapse, digital takeover. Where do I stand in all these confusions, and how do I deal with it? Leaving the comfort zone. An exciting pairing of slight regret and insecurity with the excitement of adventure and challenges. Enjoying my home one more time with all these beloved comforts. My new home will be the hard, worn-out seat of my vintage motorbike. The boxes are filled with all sorts of delicious treats, like little farewell gifts to make it a little easier for me to leave. Feeling so at home among the Moroccan people on the ferry, I sense again the natural, fearless warmth of the heart. It resonates with my heart, which is very happy about it. I'm grinding more often from pure joy.
Atención, por favor, informamos a los señores pasajeros con vehículos y sin vehículos ya pueden acceder al garaje. Gracias.
the art of life is finding the balance between all our inner parts and being able to make compromises. Giving my exhausted inner child a good break with an ice-cold Coke, but also allow my hero to have fun. And I got up very early today, got on the bike still in the dark, to use the coolness of the morning to get on south. And letting my mind do this beloved travel planning. Because of the brutal heat in the plains, I would like to make it quickly into the cooler high mountains. I watch National Geographic in Arabic on a huge flat screen. I see hunters in green forests and fishermen on their boats. It seems so absurd to me here in the dry, boiling desert. And yet it pulls me back into completely different realities, which are all happening in the world at the same time. All at this very moment. And I'm currently experiencing my small, very personal part in this big whole thing that must sound like such a huge humming. I travel with my desert thoughts and dreams, absorbing the incredible age of the barren, timeless landscapes. The desert connects me back into timelessness, more than any other landscapes does. Like a strange, uninhabited planet, and no human has ever set his foot on. I feel alien, like an intruder at this ancient other world. The silence soaks deep into my soul, and yet today I felt like I was finally back on the bare bark of our planet. This huge ball of matter, 4.5 billion years old, and with enormous heat and the power of gravity, all baked together from even much older stardust. What am I doing all this for? Why is anyone still doing anything in view of our global situation? I'm sure there are a lot more important things to do in this world than turning all that delicious gasoline into a big smile. But the better question is how these changes are supposed to happen. Because if we just continue what we have done so far, if we actually just want to keep repeating everything as we are used to it, even the greatest change that remains in the same framework will not be much of a use in the end. We might screw it up either way. We cannot change the structures through measures that these structures have already built up. Incidentally, that's why I no longer believe in a political solution. This time the changes have to come up from the very bottom. They have to come from us. That's why I keep making these trips. Traveling changes me. Let old things fall away from me. It doesn't happen suddenly, it's a process. As slowly as the clouds in the sky change, and we only notice it when we haven't looked for a while. Traveling is like soul food, allows me to heal, continue to grow, become stronger, sprout new branches and blossoms inside me. I won't be the same when I come from this deep silence here back to Europe, where everything just hums and rattles and whistles. Learning something new about myself, knowing myself a little better, I can accept everything I am a little better, and I can love myself a little more again. Old insecurities and fears dissolve. What remains is what defines me. I become clearer, shine on more and more like this shiny diamond that I really am. But almost everyone I know still struggles with feelings of imperfection or guilt, afraid of not being good enough, afraid of being a big asshole in the end. Who can really accept and love themselves the way we really are? But we have to learn that. As a result, we are changing so incredibly many things. All these substitute satisfactions to make up for that huge lack of love. All this fear in relationships. which then only leads us to jealousy and resentment and on projecting on each other. Our endless run for perfection, which ultimately only represents a projection on the outside of what our insides really demands from us: harmony and love. But it's kind of the same here in the High Atlas. The most difficult paths are actually always the most beautiful. I believe only with that most loving energy and intent should now these new changes take place. Without a heartfelt love for the whole, we certainly won't get out of here, because the ego itself is tripping us. That's why something is needed that can stand above the ego, and only love can do that. We identified with our states, and it resulted in wars and many deaths. We identified with rules and roles, and that gave us a lot of fear, justification and inner enslavement. We identified with our partnerships, and there was tightness, pain, loneliness and many tragic and painful breakups. In the end, every identification cannot give us the support that we expect from it, because they are all just fictional. It's like a house of cards all around us, made of ideas, which will certainly collapse again in a painful way. I only want to identify with myself, if it has to be at all. All these notions of who we might be, or at worst, who we should be. I really don't want to correspond to any picture anymore that has to fall out of its frame anyway. I'd rather just be happy to be the way I feel, just in every single moment. I wish that one day love will become more powerful than the ego. Or as Jimi Hendrix said, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, only then will the world knows what peace is. To be completely free in my heart, to be able to go wherever my heart takes me, without it having to cause myself or the other any pain. There's a greater intelligence that knows exactly what I need next to grow. And I can humbly confide in this intelligence, knowing well that I am limited as a human being, and I can usually only really grasp a very small part of this universal reality. I am like this nearly circular lake here, gazing steadily up in the sky like a giant fisheye. And the sky above him is just as round, only much, much larger. In this large circle of this horizon, the infinity in which we all are embedded through time and space is revealed at night. Out there's only timeless silence and endless expanse, already for billions of years. But who am I in view of this greatness that I can recognize? I'm such a small person. I'm limited, dependent, imperfect, lazy and shy, anxious and helpless. And isn't that exactly why I'm so lovable? And yet I only really want one thing: to live in deepest love for everything and everyone. For perhaps it is the only gateway for us mortals to timeless eternal bliss. At least until we return home into the light and into infinity. Where do we all come from? And where are we all going to? We all come from the light of love, and we will return into it again. The silence here is deafeningly beautiful. A piece of my soul is so at home here in the desert. Once again I feel arrived on the bare bark of our planet. I have now fully reached the goal of my journey. I believe that we are all actually on the path to enlightenment in a very natural way. This path leads us beyond our ego to a great universal love. Emotions are always bound to our ego, and the more you can dissolve your own ego, the less our emotions will appear in your awareness. And everyone always gets exactly what they need and what will help them on the way. The universe takes so good care of all of us. It loves us like no human could ever love us. And even all our difficulties, emotions and illnesses are only given to us to continue growing. Yes, even the biggest lumps on our way are also the biggest gifts if you look more closely. There's absolutely no need to worry about achieving this ultimate goal. Everything is arranged already so well and absolutely perfectly. The whole universe takes care about your enlightenment. And not even you or anyone else knows how you are going to reach that one day. And then it even doesn't matter anymore. It can be a single look, or falling leaves, or heartfelt sound, or familiar smell, beautiful or even bad music, or a child's smile, or the hug of a loved one. Your own dying process on our last day, or just a beautiful sunrise. It could literally be anything in this world that opens our hearts so wide. If only you are willing to take this huge love inside you, and your heart has grown big enough to hold it. Your ego has been led ad absurdum long enough, and all your desire has finally exhausted itself, has fulfilled his needs often enough. Our lust for life will be once so deeply satisfied that it no longer needs you. Then you can let it all go. You would then be quite ready to go out of life completely satisfied, or stay and enjoy everything just as an extra bonus. But then you won't be afraid anymore, and you know you can't go wrong. You feel that there can no longer be any good or bad, and that sooner or later all other dualities will also disappear. Whether man or woman, it doesn't matter anymore. We are all loving beings on their quest for life. What remains is the whole beauty that smiles at us in everything, like the fat grin of God, who always wants to tell us one and the same thing: don't be afraid. I know that everyone has this potential within them. We should never lose sight of that. It doesn't matter where we are in life right now. Knowing where the journey is going to does not mean to anticipate it, because, as it's well known, only the way is the goal. This knowledge will connect us to our divine destiny in every moment. The rudimentary simplicity touched me the most. Laundry is still washed in large community actions in the river. Firewood is transported in logs on heavily loaded donkeys. The children take care of the goats all day long in untouched, barren landscape. The modest houses are either made entirely of clay or of concrete blocks. They all look never finished and already a bit neglected. The gardens are bursting with lush greenery. Women of all ages are working in the fields with their brightly colored, simple clothes, or carrying around huge bundles of greenery wrapped in large cloths. Dogs, cats, chickens seem just as much part of the family as donkeys and goats. The faces are friendly and relaxed, and the eyes of these people shine with bright happiness, especially those of the many happy children who radiate such a natural and pure beauty as if we were in the Garden of Eden. The little boys play football on the only main street that runs right through the middle of the village. Older women stand in groups and gossip. Young women bustle around, usually in threes or twos of their best friends. Old people sit comfortably in their doorways and silently watch all the hustle and bustle. Men load or unload the donkeys. Some are building with stones and cement or repairing their vehicles, all of which look like something straight off of a prehistoric museum. The intake originally affected me deeply. A part of me would like to stay, because what these people live together seemed to me like a genetically stored memory, which may even be the origin of my old longing for a community. And another part doesn't even feel worthy of these people anymore. I wouldn't fit anymore. I've gotten far too spoiled, too lazy to just live this life the way they do. I would miss so many things, but all that doesn't seem to have that much value compared to this lively community in these villages here. We may have made so much progress technically, politically and economically, and yet we have totally lost ourselves in it. And with that, we lost contact with each other. We are now all much more independent, but strangely also much more anxious, because our future has never been as uncertain as it is today. We have become inflexible slaves of our own machinery. You can see this most clearly in geriatric care, in healthcare and in the school system. For we have almost lost human dignity in the rush of all our unnecessary necessities. After all, our dignity is being violated everywhere. It's already quite normal. We are being patronized everywhere today. Our minds are now being shaped by cooperations with algorithms. Our health is being genetically engineered and dependent on pills. Our children are being schooled with all our overblown crap and educated on it until they can copy the whole machinery over and over again. And anyone who no longer participates is simply thrown out. Anyone who says something against it is simply silenced and ignored. And anyone who even rebels is banned and isolated, if necessary, also locked up. I really have better things to do than having to prove that I'm healthy with such a ridiculous rapid antigen test. If I want to cross the border back to Europe. But with a vaccination card it would of course not be a problem at all. As if those who were vaccinated always knew exactly that they are still as healthy as they always pretend. I have had to endure a lot of rejection, even in my own family, about this. I have experienced a lot of arrogance and closedness after many attempts to inform from my part. It is now everyone's responsibility what they do with it, and whether they break these shackles. We are free with everything what has been slumbering in us up to now, and that may not yet want to be seen. Because if the tide should suddenly turn one day, and the perhaps tragic consequences of an RMNA treatment eventually come to light, accepting that and really allowing and going through the pain process that follows is always a big challenge for everyone. I am grateful and I love life with all its facets. I don't know to what extent we will be able to help those who just don't see it yet, but I know I'll be ready for it. In the new world, there's really no room for arrogance. Because of the distance to Europe, I'm more aware of what is going wrong in the whole Western-influenced modern world, where I soon be returning to. I'm really ashamed in front of my two childs how much I would like to leave behind a completely different world, maybe one a little bit more like this here, in the last forgotten cracks, in the huge skin folds of an ancient mountain range in the very north of Africa. And the irony of the whole thing is that exactly those people who are still able to live the happiness of an intact village community perhaps wish for nothing more than to reach my standard of living one sunny day. Wherever this world will take us, I agree. Because what do I really know about the big plan? Whatever happens, everything follows the laws of nature, and even our twisted, weird, nice little species can avoid it, although they love to try that again and again. But I have to keep reminding myself what I brought back from the timelessness of my near-death experience. Everything is absolutely perfect the way it is, even when things get tough, because everything is fine in the end, because otherwise it's not the end, as we all know. These grandiose wide views often made me to think into the future. Sometimes I try to imagine what's really going on in the world. I have to assume that money and power and the degree of manipulation have never been so concentrated in our history as it is the case today. But what that really means at our very end of the information chain, we can only guess what's on. For me, it is clear that it must be very attractive to experiment with these new gene scissors like CRISPR-Cas9. In fact, 10 years ago a whole new window was opened with it, which allows us unexpectedly quick and easy solutions. And the contact via the mucous membranes is completely sufficient to smuggle new material into our genes, whatever it is supposed to do to us. Or what is really going on with nanobacteria or nanorobots in these days. Or with microwave transmitters. And what is quantum physics really working on? Or what might these new ultra-fast quantum computers already enable us to do today? Mankind has always seemed to pursue the weakness to their urge to play. We simply try everything what is possible. Be it steam engines or nuclear power plants, atomic bombs or biological weapons. Anyone who still believes that we humans still shy away from something probably doesn't know us humans well enough. That's why I think it's not really wise to dismiss all these conspiracy theories. There are still so many questionable things to be clarified, which all taken together must look a lot more like a paranoid schizophrenia than the urge for the truth. We should be able to face and discuss openly all of these possible situations. What and how much of all these special topics are reality seems strange enough to quickly dismiss it and not drag our brains with it. Who could not understand this very well? Where did the spearhead of journalism got stuck? They are supposed to uncover the real scandals behind the scenes, like they did in the good old days, but they probably just can't do it anymore. Because if you don't want to put on these new blinders, you suddenly no longer are allowed to play. Anyone who questions the narrative is immediately out. That would give us the perfect conditions for collective psychosis. To take something as true which is not so at all. And now? Who's going to tell now the king about his new clothes? Sometimes I even think about these dark scenarios in apocalypse films, zombie films, or really ugly political or economic dramas. Doesn't this also slowly but surely transform our reality? Aren't we the creators of our reality? And by making all of these, aren't they somehow take on a lot more of potential reality as well? I am often afraid of the unknown. I'm just wondering if something from our past isn't just repeating itself again, because we still haven't worked us through it properly. At those times, nobody would have thought about the horribly cruel reality of concentration camps being the truth, not even the inmates. So today we again defend ourselves against these most terrible thoughts. So let me ask you, are we still in the shower, or are we already in the gas chamber? At that time there were 6 million Jews murdered systematically and in cold blood during the last collective psychosis. And this number would probably no longer be enough for a new edition of such a genocide. it scares me a lot more not knowing what's really going on. If I only could look a monster like that directly into the eye, I'd have an idea with who I'm dealing with. But if I have to reckon with that fact that it could be hiding behind everything, then I'm actually fueling my fear, and with it, unfortunately, the fears of everyone else too. But those fears look just as bad, or even worse, as they do in all those doomsday movies, don't they? Who wants to get into all that anyway? Right, no one. And this is exactly where my greatest fears lies. Perhaps we are no longer want to accept reality, because it has already become far too scary and impossible for us. We repress even the most obvious, and thereby only drift further and further into our collective psychosis. Today I encountered a lot of small, deep and beautiful moments. A little girl who was a bit shy but very proud, dancing in front of her grandparents in a snow-white dress. Two fat old men leaning against the wall, deep into a funny conversation and smiling at the blue sky. An elderly gentleman sitting behind his Mercedes on the curb on a lonely street, ritually washing his feet with a bottle of water for his evening prayers, while his kids played on the sidewalk. A young street vendor who has a thick bundle strapped onto his back and who drew attention to himself with a rubber horn like a funny clown. Two very young men looking around curiously, maybe just 18, with spindle legs, who were carrying their camping gear in huge hiking backpacks. A couple of little girls holding hands with their parents, with angelic faces, smiling at me and waving kindly with their free hand. A group of young teenagers who were obviously having a lot of fun, sitting on a bridge railing, yelling and waving with their arms. A whole row of older people sitting outside like a string of pearls on plastic chairs by the side of the road, silently watching the passing traffic in the cooler evening sun. A little boy, lost at a big crossing, sat on the side of the road and still looked quite comfortably. Four smaller children sitting next to a dumpster in a broken bathtub, laughing and rocking around. A group of grown men standing together jokingly, pulling off each other's peaked caps and laughing loudly. Life happens outside here, in front of everyone's eye, without much shame. And you can almost smell the sense of belonging between everyone. It's fascinating on this night ferry. Even managed to get some sleep, but then I was awake and walked through a packed, sleeping ship. Wherever there was a square meter of flat ground, someone used it to lay down and dive into other worlds, happily and innocent like children. I've really never been among so many people who were all asleep. Just the absence of our permanent human chatter, it had almost something frightening. almost as if they were all dead, and I, the only survivor, was staggering across the scene of an incredible tragedy. The few who were still awake and dangling on their mobiles very quickly shooted away this nasty, nightmarish idea in me. All those legs and bare feet that mostly peeked out from under jackets and blankets that were way too short. All those relaxed, innocent faces with the closed eyes. Everyone seemed to be walking on their own planet. And then, while it was still pitch black outside, the captain suddenly turned on loud, stressful electronic music to startle everyone out of their sweet dreams, because we were soon entering the port of Motril. Now that I have familiar roots under my tires again, I noticed how much I have become one with my machine through this intensive trip. It's like the bike is a part of me and the machine is just an extension of my muscles. An incredible feeling of oneness with this iron bundle.